Welcome to Protecting Your Family. In this video, you'll protect the ones that you love no matter what happens. I've built $1 million net worth in my 20s, but I've also built a marriage and a family. And when you have both, protecting them matters just as much as building them. This video is going to give you the protection framework that makes sure the wealth you are building today stays with the people who matter to you no matter what happens. We're going to cover 3 things: life insurance, liability insurance, and estate planning. Oh man, doesn't this sound like fun? This is not the most exciting topic in finance, but the truth is you can make every right financial decision, you can max your retirement accounts, you can build passive income, pay off debt, but one bad event can erase it all. This is the crucial protection piece of our financial foundation, and we cannot leave it out before we move on to alternative investments. This video is part of the Cash Flow Explorer course, and we are currently in level 4, always safety first, before we're moving on to the more advanced topics in 5 through 7. Let's get into life insurance. When Amy and I got married, I started thinking about finances in a way I never had before. We're building together, but I was still more of the primary earner. And if I died tomorrow, would she be okay? And when our baby came into the picture, that question got a lot louder in the back of my head. This is not about being a morbid person, but you need to think through that question and make sure the answer is yes, that they'll be okay. It's one of the most important things I've ever done for my family, and it costs us a few $100s a year. Think about those that depend on your income, and that is why you need life insurance. If people depend on your income, these are called dependents, you need life insurance. Life insurance protects your family. It replaces your income if you pass away. It can pay off the mortgage and debts to make sure that your family can stay in their home. It can also help with your kids' education for the future, and it helps with any other final expenses like funeral costs. When you die, your family is going to be heartbroken. So don't leave them heartbroken and broke. We want to take care of this. Term life insurance is exactly what it sounds like. So you have life insurance for a certain term. So let's say when you're 20 years old, you get your first term life insurance policy, and it's a 20-year policy. From ages 20 to 40, you'll be covered by that policy. You're only going to pay this much every year. So this is your annual premium or cost for your insurance. And if you die, which I hope you don't, you would get this much in death benefit. And then when you start to earn more, or maybe you have more dependents in your 30s and 40s, you buy a second term life insurance policy that layers on top of this one. And since you're older and you probably need more of a death benefit, you're going to pay more of an annual premium for this one, but then you also get that benefit locked in. So what you pay is your annual premium or cost, and then what you get is the death benefit if you die during that term. I think people are always surprised how remarkably affordable term life insurance is, especially when you're young and healthy, because a healthy person in their 20s or 30s, you can get $1 million policy for a few $100s a year. That premium gets locked in at the rate you qualify for when you sign up. So that's another reason not to wait to get term life insurance. If you're deep into this finance world, you probably also have heard a lot about whole life insurance. So in this case, you have a higher annual premium and it lasts for a longer time, and then you get roughly a similar death benefit as the term life insurance policy. What's different about whole life insurance is you're essentially putting money into a forced savings plan, and that capital can grow and you can borrow from it to invest, but really it's way more complex than we need to be doing at this time. If you don't know how to actually leverage a whole life insurance policy, it does not make sense to pay the higher annual premium for roughly the same death benefit. Just get your term life insurance. For 99% of people, term life insurance is the way to go. Let's get into these steps. So to determine how much you need, the financial planning standard is roughly 10 to 12x your annual income. So if your annual income is $100,000, your death benefit should be $1 million to $1.2 million. You can also review your current employer plan. So where you're working, you probably have a little bit of life insurance today, but I would treat this as a bonus policy because it disappears if you leave your job. You don't want to get fired and then your benefits expire and then you die and then your family's really in the hole. So you want to make sure that you have your own policy first, and then what you get through work is kind of like an added benefit. So number 2 is to buy your own term life insurance policy. Look for a 20 or 30-year term that covers your family during your peak earning years, and then you can lock it in at an earlier age to get a lower rate. After that, continue investing for your retirement because your term life insurance will eventually expire. So that's why you buy term and invest the difference. Here's what it looks like on a graph. So as you get older, the price of term life insurance is only going to get higher. So it costs this much when you're 20, and this much when you're 32. But when you're 50s and 60s, no one really wants to give you a policy for a death benefit. So they're going to charge you a lot of money for it. So you have to go into this knowing that your term life insurance is going to expire. So when that term does eventually expire, we want to make sure that our retirement investments and savings are there to catch us. This is why everybody says buy term and invest the difference. So you have a low cost for your term life insurance, and then you invest as much as you can at the young age to let it grow. And then at this point, you don't need term life insurance anyway. All right, I added this at the bottom, but I hope you have a long, healthy life, and I hope you never have to use your term life insurance. But we got to get it anyway. Let's move on to liability insurance. This is a hilarious picture that I created of Atlanta, Georgia. When you're driving down I-85, you can see just so many billboards for lawyers talking about they're going to fight for you and they're going to sue the other person into the ground. Well, we live in a very litigious society. We're always suing each other. It is very important to get liability insurance because, like life insurance, liability and property insurance protect you. It's not just a cost, it is there for your protection. And there's two main types here. The first is auto insurance. So this is your car insurance. And there's two different sections. Liability is if you are liable for a car accident, it will pay for their medical bills, their lost wages to repair their car, and any other legal damages. And then for your own property, so if your car is damaged or gets hit by a tree, your auto insurance will pay for repairs. With your home insurance, you also have the same liability property split. So if somebody gets hurt on your property, it'll pay for their medical bills and legal damages. And then for your own property, if your house gets damaged or destroyed, it pays for repairs, rebuild, and temporary housing. So these policies cover your liability as well as things that can happen to your property. Let's get into some examples. So the first is the mailman attack. So somebody's delivering mail on your lawn, and then your killer chihuahua attacks them and bites their leg, and they have really big medical expenses from this. Not to make light of this whole situation, but I like how the AI generated image combined the ambulance and the mail truck into one. So that's pretty slick. But in this case, the lawsuit, the other person's medical bills, damages, and legal fees are over $750,000. But your home insurance will only pay up to $300,000. This means you actually owe $450,000 out of pocket. And in another situation, if there's a serious car collision, your car goes over the median or somebody crashes into you head on, the other person's medical bills, damages, and legal fees are over $1.5 million. And your auto insurance is only willing to pay up to $100,000. So you personally are responsible for $1.4 million out of your pocket. So what happens if your insurance isn't enough? Well, I'd like to introduce you to umbrella insurance. Umbrella insurance stacks on top of your auto and home coverage, and it kicks in when your auto and home liability is exhausted. You can also buy it in $1 million increments. It's like $150 to $400 a year. So you can get a lot of extra insurance for a very cheap cost. Let's say you had umbrella insurance in these situations, things would look a lot different. For the mailman attack, your home insurance will still only cover up to $300,000, but let's say you had an umbrella policy with $1 million worth of coverage. Now you're covered for $0 out of your own pocket. And in the car crash example, your insurance for your car only pays up to $100,000 still, but your umbrella insurance adds another $2 million of coverage on top of that. So you're covered with $0 out of your own pocket. With umbrella, if the legal damages are higher than what your home and auto will cover, umbrella's got your back. So to review liability insurance, life insurance, liability, and property insurance all protect you. Auto insurance covers the auto liability as well as property damages. And then home insurance covers home liability and property damages. And then lastly, umbrella insurance stacks on top of your auto and home coverage. And depending on your situation, you may need other types of insurance. I also highly recommend disability insurance. This protects your income if you can no longer work if you are disabled. There is short and long-term disability. There's also renter's insurance that protects your stuff and you when you rent. There's flood insurance. You typically have to buy your own flood insurance because it is not included in your home policy. There's also professional liability insurance and business insurance. So if you have a work-related lawsuit or if your business gets sued, you want to make sure that you have these policies in place. And then lastly, if you have any other types of vehicles like boat, RV, or motorcycle, you can get other vehicle insurance. When you're looking to get these things set up, Review your current coverage from your auto and home policies, and then you can make any other updates to expand your coverage. I would always shop around every couple of years and switch carriers if you find a better deal. Remember, we're not trying to get the cheapest insurance possible, we're trying to get the best coverage possible for the right price. And the rule of thumb for the umbrella policy is to cover at least your net worth. So if your net worth is $5 million, you can get an umbrella policy that covers up to $6 million. And then double check any of your other risks like disability, flood, renters, business insurance, etc. Insurance is the cheapest form of asset protection there is, so don't skimp on it. Next up, let's get into estate planning. And a really quick disclaimer, I know this is our favorite slide, but I am not an estate planning attorney. This is education, not advice. There is a super famous example in estate planning, and this is the case of Prince, who died without a will. His estate was worth $156 million. And after a 6-year battle in court, they paid $45 million in legal fees and $82 million in federal and state taxes. His heirs received far less than half of what he left behind. Other people said it was less than 20%, but at least we know it was less than half. So what happened here? Why was this such a huge mistake? Well, once Prince died without a will, they didn't know what to do with the value of his estate and all of those assets. So the court had to determine the rightful heirs, and this is called probate court. It typically gets a bad rap, but the court is just trying to decide where this estate value should go to. So there were tons of people that claimed to be heirs, and a lot of people needed to be DNA tested to see if they were actually related to Prince. Once they went through the process of figuring out who the actual rightful heirs were to Prince's estate, the 6 heirs identified all wanted different things. Some people wanted to sell off the assets, and other people wanted to preserve the music catalog. And even then, I think 2 of the heirs died during this process, so then it went down to their descendants. There's just so many pieces to this. The valuation of Prince's estate was also extremely difficult. What is a music catalog worth and all of those royalties? And then how much does the IRS decide to take in taxes based on the size of that estate? So there's just so many moving pieces here. But all of this could have been avoided with proper estate planning. I'm sure Prince meant to get around to it, but he didn't. To say it simply, estate planning is writing down your wishes for your wealth, health, and family. If you don't specify where your assets should go, probate court is going to decide for you. So if we plan ahead and say where your assets and wealth should go, you can make the impact that you actually wanted and not let other people decide. When it comes to estate planning, there are 4 big documents that you need. So first, you need to decide who gets what, and this is where your assets go. The first section here is your will, and this includes instructions for where your assets will go. You have a simple will, and then there's also a pour-over will. I'll talk about that in a sec. And then you also have a trust. The trust is a vault to hold your assets. On the other side, you have who acts for you. So who decides for you if you can't. So if you're incapacitated, this is a person who can make decisions for you. And there's 2 different sides. First is the power of attorney, and this is who can make financial decisions for you. And then there's also a medical side. So this is your medical directive and who can make medical decisions for you. So you have your living will and then a healthcare power of attorney as well. Here are the specifics that you need to know about these different items. The will says where your assets should go when you die, and it also will specify legal guardians for your children. So this is a very important document. And it's really important to note that beneficiaries that you assign within your 401k, IRA, and life insurance policies will override whatever's in the will. So make sure those are set up correctly. The trust is a legal entity that holds assets and it passes them directly to your heirs. So it skips that probate court. So with your assets like your home, vehicles, and investments, instead of those being owned in your personal name, they can be actually owned within your trust. Within your trust, you can have a revocable one or an irrevocable. Revocable means that it's flexible and you can change it throughout your lifetime. Irrevocable means it's locked and you really can't control it. So the trust technically isn't a document, it is a legal entity that you move all your assets into, but the pour-over will is a document. What this does is it catches any assets that you didn't transfer into your trust during your lifetime. So your will, you specify the different assets that you have and where they should go, but you can also have an extra document that is a pour-over will to say that anything that was in your name that you didn't move into the trust still should be moved into the trust at your time of death. That way, it basically pours over to all of your assets and captures them and scoops them into the trust. The power of attorney says who can make financial decisions for you, so who can make investment decisions or financial decisions. And then within the medical directive of who can make medical decisions for you, your living will are your medical wishes, but then your healthcare power of attorney is the one who actually helps decide. To get all this stuff set up, you can work with a professional and get your 4 documents in place. An attorney or an online platform will give you all 4. So you'll have a will, trust, power of attorney, and your medical directive. And then after that, review your 401k, IRA, and life insurance beneficiaries. Remember, these override whatever's in your will, so you want to keep these beneficiaries current. And then review these documents every 3 to 5 years or after major life events. As a takeaway, when you die, your family is going to be heartbroken. Don't leave them heartbroken, broke, and confused. A little bit of estate planning can go a long way. Let's wrap things up here. So for life insurance, it protects your income for your family. Liability insurance protects you from accidents and lawsuits, and then an umbrella policy adds extra coverage on top of that. Within estate planning, it protects what you leave behind, and you specify your wishes for your wealth, health, and family instead of other people trying to guess what you wanted to do. How do we pull all of this information together? I highly recommend you create a legacy binder. Other people call this a when I die book, but I prefer the legacy binder. So all the things that go within this, you have one spot that has all of your insurance policy, your life insurance, auto, home, umbrella, health, disability, etc. And then you have your estate planning documents. So your will, your trust, your power of attorney, your medical directive. You also have your personal documents, things like your social security cards, birth certificates, driver's license, not your actual driver's license, but a copy of your driver's license. Then you have your financial accounts. So where you can find your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, where are your credit cards? Where is your mortgage? What other loans do you have? And who are your beneficiaries for them? And then we want to have all your property and asset information too, like your house deed, car titles, safe deposit box info, and any other storage units that you may have. It is also super important to work on your digital access. This is a huge issue nowadays, but having access to a password manager, sharing your credentials for your email account, and then also how to get into your phone and computer and unlock those. It's also really smart to write down your key contacts. So you have family, of course, but then you also want to write down your attorney, who is your CPA, who is your doctor, who's your employer, advisors, and agents. We want to make sure all those key people are in there. And then lastly, write down your final wishes. You can include funeral preferences. You can have a letter in there. You can start a draft of your own obituary, and then also how to take care of your pet once you're gone. Then store the binder in a secure place. I highly recommend a safe that is fireproof, and then you can tell other people where it is and how to get into it. So for the action and life insurance, definitely make sure you have term life insurance. For liability, bump up that coverage and add umbrella. And then for estate planning, get all 4 estate planning documents in place. And then lastly, set up that legacy binder so everything's in one spot. I know there's a lot of things to do here, but pick one and start with it because the biggest threat to your family is inaction. I don't want you to make the same mistake. So if you do one of these things every quarter, you're going to be set up really well. So in this video, you learned how to protect the ones that you love no matter what happens. In the next video, it's the road to accreditation and it's the capstone level of level 4. It's how to invest in cash flow investments without being an accredited investor. This is going to be a good one, and I'll see you there.